Hello! I've discovered that I really like making these types of art yapping videos, so I'm making another one. This time I'm going to be ranting about a current story that I'm working on. If you've seen some of my animations before, you might have seen some of these characters, but now I'm giving context, yay! I've written some of it in book format, but I feel like it would be much better as a comic. Sadly, I can't even draw backgrounds, let alone create my own setting. To be honest, I made the main characters back in 2021 with the sole intention of indulging in the cliché fantasy anime world because I just watched Snow White with the red hair and Howl's Moving Castle. But after accidentally getting an idea for a villain, it sort of ended up as a 1900s fantasy mix. So they've got gramophones, telephones, and cars, but also knights, pirates, and magic. Well, I say there's magic, but it's actually been made illegal after several devastating historical events involving magic. And since the authorities didn't want to deal with the terrible few who abuse it, they made it inaccessible for everyone. How nice. However, some still practice it in secret in a kind of underground magic society. It's a good time. The actual story begins a few years after the Kingdom of Devona, a floating city in the sky, had taken control over a smaller city, so they had sent knights to go fight. This is relevant later. Aside from the main city in the sky, there are lots of towns and settlements beneath it, with the people there being a lot less well off than those that live by the castle. The combination of Victorian-style fashion and architecture mixed with early 1900s technology is really fun for me to think about. Piracy is at an all-time high, like me, when I can't find the right movie on Netflix, due to supplies becoming fewer as the empire expands. Only those at the top of the food chain live comfortably, and that brings us to the first main character. I'm just gonna go in order of appearance in the draft I've written so far, so Atticus Lunda is the first character that gets introduced. He is 14 years old, he is female to male transgender, and he is the sole heir of the Devona royal family. However, his mother the queen is certain that him, in heavy air quotes, wanting to be a boy, is all a phase, so she doesn't allow him to participate in lessons of becoming king, as in her eyes, he'll be queen. Atticus doesn't really like the idea of being king or queen, he just wants to play violin in the concert hall to a full house and he'll be satisfied in life. His father doesn't concern himself with his wife's transphobia because he's too busy grieving his first son who had passed away 2 years prior. Atticus's brother was a knight recruited by his father's close personal friend, the knight captain Louis Chabrier, who Atticus blames for his brother's death. After he cuts his hair and runs away from the castle to the smaller towns on the ground because of plot reasons, Atticus is flung into a world he'd only read about in stories and history books. It becomes very clear that he is out of his element, and he is, by all means, not an idiot, but is very incompetent and very ignorant. I would talk about some of these moments, but to be honest, I don't want to, spoil the entire thing, so I can't. But naturally, there are also people to ground him and balance out his incompetence. The next main character that gets introduced is Quill Lockhart, the self-proclaimed professional thief. He is 25 years old and a pirate. This is just a side note, but I'm quite unhappy with the outfits of most of these characters. I'm really just bad at designing clothes, so just in case you're wondering why some of them look really bland, there you go. Anyway, he meets Atticus after attempting to ransack some family heirlooms in the castle where a thing happens to do with the plot that I won't say yet. They both run away in a hurry, and Quill thinks he's basically gotten off scot-free, but turns out Atticus stowed away in a barrel on his ship. Pirate ships fly in this universe as well. I forgot to mention that. Imagine, in Stardust. Anyway, they strike up a deal where they can both help each other. Quill helps Atticus get something out of the castle, and Atticus gets him a hefty reward from his parents' fortune. He is extremely materialistic, which becomes a problem later on, but that's spoilers! In his teen years, he was part of another well-known pirate gang and was a self-centered asshole. And every time he thinks back on it now, he gets really embarrassed, which is surprising because he's still kind of a self-centered asshole. But now that he's left that group for plot reasons, he has, as the kids say, fell off. The only people that really know who he is now are the knights. One in particular, wink, I just blinked, oh my god. He thinks that Atticus's lack of common knowledge is hilarious, but since he's the one that has to deal with him, it very quickly becomes not very funny. But they form a brotherly relationship, and Quill becomes a major role model for Atticus and learn to take each other more seriously. Actually, taking himself seriously is something Quill really struggles with. During the story, it's revealed that he is a massive flirt and gets help in the plot from various people he'd had romantic relations with, and I'm kind of playing it off as comedic because Atticus has no clue what is going on just because of how sheltered he is. People hold hands before they marry, that's crazy. The third main character is Eleonora, who I'm currently trying to find a last name for. She's 26 years old and works as a knight, and guess who she keeps trying to arrest? She's very devoted to her job and believes that everything she does should be for the sake of justice. Her family life is fairly uneventful. They were all very supportive in her decision to join the Knights, and when she was 16, they sent her off to the cadet training school type of thing. So you can imagine that when she slowly realizes how corrupt the Knights actually are, she is not very happy about it. You might notice that her outfit is infinitely more thought out than the other two. Ignore the shoes, because I redesigned her knight uniform. The Knights have typical armor, but also a more army-style uniform that I like to draw more because I can't design armor for the life of me. It's actually really funny because when I first made Eleonora, literally her only purpose was to be Quill's badass princess love interest. I was 14, but I think now her character arc is one of my favorite to think about. At the start of the story, she's kind of very with the morality of the Knights, and they're all like, oh, magic is bad, anyone that uses magic is bad, but then she sort of realizes magic is actually cool. By the end of the story, she finds a way to bring proper morality back to the Knights, and all the assholes get fired, so that's always good. To be honest, there are a lot of gaps in the story. I know how it starts, what they have to do, and major plot points, but there are so many parts where I have no idea what they would do, which is why writing takes me so long. I think a massive part of this problem for me is because I can only really come up with scenes when I'm listening to music, so I need to be able to just think and things happen. Now that I've covered all of the main characters, I can finally talk about the villain who I probably have the most to say about, so bear with me because this is going to be a long one. Vincent Lunda's story starts 1,000 years before the main plot. In this universe, the people worship the sun and have their own legend of how its story goes, but the base of it is, the sun saw humans on Earth and fell in love with their music and agriculture and wanted so badly to experience it for herself, but she would never have left the moon alone by himself. After a while, the moon agreed to go with her because he loved her and wanted to see her happy. I can't really explain this in a way that makes sense yet, but they took on the forms of humans, but it's not like the actual sun and moon disappeared from the sky, but their souls were now in human bodies. Yeah, that made sense. The sun loved being there so much that when their human bodies died, they reincarnated into new bodies, Avatar style, and ruled over the land. Skip to several thousand years later, probably, and they've been ruling the kingdom together for many generations. Vincent, the current moon and king, had grown tired of Earth, but could never tell that to his wife, Kira, the current sun. One day, Vincent stole a curse from a witch because he thought it would give him immeasurable power, as you do, and it did, but he became colder and mean-spirited. Eventually, it consumed him so much that he attempted to go back to the sky by raising a massive chunk of the kingdom and lifting it towards the stars. Wow, it's the law on why the kingdom floats. Kira finally saw that her husband was gone and defeated him, suspending the land in midair. She couldn't bring herself to kill him, so she sealed him away in a magical artifact to act as a prison and told her subjects that she killed him instead. For the past 1,000 years since Kira passed away, there had been no more sun or moon incarnations, so this story became a superstitious fairy tale. Okay, now back to the present. Remember I said that something happened while Quill was trying to steal from Atticus? He ended up with the magic artifact in his hands, and Atticus tried to take it off him, and they both ended up dropping it. And out came Atticus's 1,000-year-old evil grandfather. Vincent found that his power had decreased dramatically, but the power he has might actually be my favorite thing about this whole story. Like with Faye, he can control people as long as he knows their name. It sounds simple, but if that person has no identity attached to the name he knows, he can't control them. The more sense of self a person has, the more he can control by taking away that sense of self. So, I don't know if you remember, but Atticus is transgender. Vincent only knows his dead name. That is the power that he has over Vincent, and it's so stupid and I love it. There are other nuances to this power, like he can't make someone do something they physically can't do, like breathe fire. He controls their will, not make them perform impossible feats. However, corpses are a whole other story. Because they're completely empty, he can tell them to do literally anything without worrying about will or sense of self. I posted a very watered down version of this on Instagram and oh my god, there was so much confusion, so that's why I'm explaining it as thoroughly as possible. Okay, now that's done, I can ramble about the process. He started out as a goofy guy who was evil and sealed away, but now none of the kingdom knows who he is, and that pisses him off. But then I was like, what is the scariest power someone can have? For me, I hate villains that can control others, which got me thinking about the Fae in the Cruel Prince series, and then I was like, can we go one step further? And I thought about the spider demon from Demon Slayer that makes the protagonist fight the corpses of their fallen comrades, and I was like, oh yeah, that's horrible. Let's do it. And then he went from being drawn like this in 2022 to this. I have been talking about Vincent way too long, so let's wrap this up. I hope this made sense, and if you stuck around till the end, wow, thank you. Now you have context with some of my animation memes. If you're interested in seeing actually fully rendered art, you can find me on these social media platforms. Thanks for watching and listening to me ramble. Bye!